I finally started going to the gym again after 2 months. Welcome back to Natural Word English. If you have ever been in a conversation that suddenly went quiet, if you have ever nodded along, not knowing what to say next, if you have ever felt your English freeze, the moment a native speaker started talking fast, this video is going to fix that today. Right now, before you do anything else, say this out loud with me. Just say it. I can keep any conversation going. Say it again, a little louder this time. I can keep any conversation going. Good. In the next hour, you are going to walk away with more than 60 real, advanced C1 to C2 words and phrases, the exact vocabulary fluent English speakers use to sustain a conversation, deepen it, redirect it, and end it gracefully without those long, awkward pauses that make you feel like you failed. This is not a list you memorize and forget. Every single word today comes wrapped inside a real situation, a real dialogue, a moment you can actually picture yourself in tomorrow morning, at work, in a cafe, on a video call. So get comfortable, keep your voice ready, because I am going to ask you to speak, and let's begin. Before we jump into the vocabulary itself, let me explain why this method works so much better than memorizing isolated words from a list. Lit. When you learn a word by itself, like the word articulate, your brain stores it as a fact, something you know about, not something you use. But when you learn that same word inside a sentence, inside a conversation, connected to an emotion and a specific moment, your brain stores it as a tool, something you reach for automatically. That is the entire secret behind fluency. Fluent speakers are not people who know more words than you. They are people whose words are wired to real situations. So today, for every new word, I will do 5 things. First, I will drop you into a real-life moment. Second, I will explain the word in simple English and tell you exactly which basic word it upgrades. Third, I will give you a natural example sentence, and for some of these, I will slow the sentence down and then speed it back up so you can hear exactly how native speakers compress the sound. Fourth, I will give you a short dialogue between 2 people using the word naturally. And fifth, I will ask you to repeat it out loud, shadowing my voice immediately, like an echo. Let's start building your new vocabulary. Picture this. It's a Tuesday evening, and you're at a small dinner with 3 coworkers you don't know very well yet. The first few minutes are fine, small talk about the weather, about the traffic, but then there's a pause. Nobody says anything for a few seconds. That pause feels like it lasts forever. This is exactly the moment we are going to solve in this first block, because keeping a conversation alive starts with understanding momentum, and momentum is our first word. Momentum in a conversation means the natural forward energy that keeps people talking without effort. Instead of saying, the conversation was going well, a fluent speaker says, the conversation had real momentum. Listen to it in a sentence. Once we started talking about travel, The conversation had so much momentum that an hour passed without us noticing. Now say that with me, slowly first. The conversation had so much momentum. Now say it a little faster, the way you'd actually say it in real speech. The conversation had so much momentum. Notice how had so much blends together. It almost sounds like had so much. That's natural connected speech, and we'll come back to that skill in a few minutes. The opposite of momentum is our next word. Stagnant. A stagnant conversation is one that has stopped moving. It feels stuck, heavy, going nowhere. Instead of saying, the conversation was boring, you can say, the conversation felt stagnant. Here's the situation. Imagine you're on a first date, and after the initial excitement, you both run out of things to say. The energy drops. You could describe that moment like this. After the first 10 minutes, the date started to feel a little stagnant, so I decided to ask her about her recent trip instead of sticking to safe topics. Repeat with me. The date started to feel a little stagnant. Good. Now here's a mini dialogue between two friends catching up after the fact. Friend 1 says, "So, how did the date go?" You respond, "Honestly, it started off great, but around the middle, it got pretty stagnant." Friend 1 asks, "What did you do?" You say, "I just asked her something more personal, and it brought the momentum right back." Friend 1 laughs and says, "Smart move." You reply, "Yeah, sometimes you just need one good question to revive things." Notice that final word, revive. To revive a conversation means to bring it back to life after it has slowed down or gone quiet. Instead of saying, "I made the conversation interesting again," you say, "I revived the conversation." Let's hear it slowly and then at natural speed. Slowly. One good question can revive a dead conversation. At natural speed. One good question can revive a dead conversation. And notice how can revive almost merges into sen revive when spoken quickly. Try saying that yourself now, out loud, twice. Now here comes your first role switch exercise. So get ready to actually participate, not just listen. I'm going to play the role of someone you just met at a networking event. And after a bit of small talk, there's an awkward lull. That's another useful word, by the way, a lull, a short, quiet gap in the conversation. I'll say my line as this new acquaintance, and then I want you to pause the video for a few seconds and respond as yourself, using one of the words we just learned. Momentum, revive, or stagnant in your answer. Ready? I say. So, yeah, it's been a pretty quiet week for me at work. What about you? Now pause and answer out loud as if you're really there. Try to revive the conversation using something more specific than a simple yes or no. Go ahead. Pause now. Good work if you tried that. Here's an example of what a fluent speaker might have said. Honestly, mine's been kind of stagnant too, but I did just get back from a trip to Portugal. So, if you want a distraction from work talk, I've got some good stories. See how that single sentence takes a flat, quiet moment and gives it real momentum again by offering something specific and inviting. That's the skill we are building today. Not just knowing words, but knowing how to deploy them at the exact right second. Let's move to a second cluster of vocabulary now, because keeping a conversation going isn't only about energy, it's also about showing the other person you are truly present, truly listening. Imagine you're talking with a close friend who is going through something difficult, maybe a hard week at work, and they start opening up to you. If you just nod and say, okay, they will feel unheard. What you want instead is to sound attentive. Being attentive means giving someone your full, careful attention, noticing details, listening closely, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Instead of saying, I was listening carefully, you say, I was really attentive to what she was saying. Here's the scene. Picture your friend sitting across from you at a kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea, voice a little tired, and she starts describing a hard conversation she had with her manager that afternoon. You lean in slightly. You don't check your phone. You stay attentive to every word. Let's build a longer dialogue here, because this is exactly the kind of situation our competitors' videos handle weekly. A short, thin exchange that doesn't feel real. We're going to do 6 full lines back and forth. So listen closely and notice how each response builds naturally on the one before it. Your friend says, I don't know. Today just felt really heavy. My manager basically told me, my work isn't good enough, and I've been trying so hard. You respond, that sounds really tough. What exactly did he say? She continues. He said my reports lack detail, but honestly, I feel like I put in more effort than anyone else on that team. You say, I can imagine how frustrating that must feel, especially when you know how much work you've actually put in. She says, exactly. And it's not the first time either. It's starting to make me doubt myself. You respond, it makes sense that you'd start to doubt yourself, but from what you've told me over the past few months, your work has always been solid. She finishes. Thank you. I really needed to hear that today. Notice the word solid there, meaning reliable, dependable, well done. Instead of saying your work is good, you can say your work is solid. And it carries more weight, more confidence. Now let's look closely at how being attentive connects to another word, perceptive. Perceptive means noticing things others might miss, picking up on small emotional signals, reading between the lines. If your friend hadn't directly said she felt hurt, but you noticed her voice shaking slightly, and you asked, are you okay? You seem a bit off today. That would make you perceptive. Instead of saying, you're good at understanding people, you say, you're really perceptive. Let's hear it in a sentence, slow first. She's incredibly perceptive. She noticed I was upset before I even said anything. Now at natural speed, a little faster, notice how she's incredibly almost runs together as one breath group. She's incredibly perceptive. She noticed I was upset before I even said anything. Repeat that with me now. Twice, out loud. Here's a short but powerful addition to this cluster, the word resonate. When something resonates with you, it deeply matches your own feelings or experience. It strikes a chord inside you. Instead of saying, "I really understand that," you say, "That really resonates with me." Picture a coworker sharing that they feel exhausted trying to balance work and family. And you respond, "That really resonates with me. I've been feeling exactly the same way this month." That single word carries so much more emotional depth than "I understand" or "same." Let's practice with a mini exchange. 3 lines this time. Coworker says, "I just feel like I'm stretched way too thin lately." You respond, "That resonates with me a lot, actually. I've been feeling the exact same pressure." Coworker says, "It's nice knowing I'm not the only one." Simple, warm, and completely natural. Now, before we move further, I want to slow things down for a moment, just a short breath. Here, in the middle of this block, close your eyes if you're somewhere safe to do that. Take one slow breath in and out. You've already picked up 5 strong, usable words: momentum, stagnant, revive, attentive, perceptive, and resonate makes 6. That's real progress, and you're only a small part of the way through this lesson. Nice work so far, genuinely. Let's keep this energy going. Let's move into our third block now. Because after showing someone you're engaged, the next skill fluent speakers rely on is the ability to elaborate, to expand on an idea instead of leaving it short and flat. This is one of the biggest reasons conversations die early. Someone gives a one-word answer, and the other person doesn't know what to do with it. So our next word is elaborate. To elaborate means to give more detail, more explanation, to build out an idea rather than leaving it thin. Instead of saying, "Can you explain more?" a fluent speaker says, "Could you elaborate on that a little?" It's more polished, more natural in professional and social settings alike. Picture yourself in a work meeting. A colleague says, "I think we should change our marketing strategy." That's vague, so you respond, "Could you elaborate on that? What exactly would you change?" This single question keeps the whole meeting moving forward instead of stalling. Let's build a full workplace role-play scene here, because this is one of our required role-play situations for today. A professional meeting. Imagine the scene. A slightly too bright conference room. A half-finished cup of coffee in front of you. 5 people around a table. And the energy is a little tense because deadlines are close. Your manager just proposed a new idea, and it wasn't very specific, Challenger says, "I think we need to rethink how we're approaching the client presentations." You respond, "That's an interesting point. Could you elaborate on what specifically isn't working right now?" Manager says, "Well, I feel like they're too data heavy and not engaging enough." You respond, "That makes sense. Maybe we could unpack that a bit. Are you thinking more storytelling or a different visual format? Notice that word unpack, meaning to break a complex idea down into simpler, clearer parts. Examine it piece by piece. Instead of saying, let's look at this more closely, fluent speakers say, let's unpack this. Manager says, storytelling, definitely. I want the client to feel something, not just see numbers. You respond, got it. I can delve into some case studies where storytelling really worked and bring options to our next meeting. That word delve, meaning to dig deeply into research or a topic, is another strong C1 word. Instead of look into it, you say delve into it. It sounds more committed, more serious. Let's slow that key sentence down for pronunciation practice. Slowly, I can delve into some case studies and bring options to our next meeting. Now, at natural conversational speed, notice how delve into nearly blends into one sound, almost like delvinto. Say it with me. Slow, then fast, 2 times each. Now here's your second role switch moment of the video, so get ready again. I'm going to read a line as your manager, wrapping up that same meeting, and I want you to pause and respond as yourself, using elaborate, unpack, or delve into somewhere in your answer. Manager says, great, thanks everyone. Let's regroup on Thursday with more concrete ideas. Now pause the video and respond as if you're speaking up in that meeting, wrapping up your part of the conversation naturally. Go ahead. Nicely done if you tried that. Here's an example response a fluent speaker might give. Sounds good. I'll delve into a couple of strong case studies before Thursday and come prepared to unpack the results with everyone. That's a confident, competent sounding close to a professional exchange, and it uses 2 of our new words naturally, not forced, not robotic. Let's add one more word to this cluster. Before we move on, the word eloquent. Someone who is eloquent speaks fluently, persuasively, and gracefully, choosing words well, expressing ideas clearly and beautifully. Instead of saying, she's a good speaker, you say, she's incredibly eloquent. Picture watching a colleague give a presentation, and afterward you turn to another coworker and say, wow, she was so eloquent, every point flowed perfectly into the next. Let's hear that in a full sentence, slow then fast. Slow. She was so eloquent, every point flowed perfectly into the next. Fast, natural speed. Notice, she was so, blends closely together. She was so eloquent, every point flowed perfectly into the next. Try that twice on your own now. You're doing genuinely well. 6 new words became 9. Now, momentum, stagnant, revive, attentive, perceptive, resonate, elaborate, unpack, delve into, and eloquent makes 10. That's a solid start to your active vocabulary, and we still have several more blocks ahead, including how to redirect a topic smoothly, how to interject naturally without interrupting rudely, how to handle silence with grace, how to build real rapport, and finally, how to master connected speech and shadowing so your listening catches up to your speaking. Take one more breath, keep your voice warmed up, and let's move into our next block, learning how to shift a conversation's direction without it feeling abrupt or awkward. That's the perfect place to keep building from, because now we're going to look at something almost every English learner struggles with: moving a conversation from one topic to another without it sounding sudden or clumsy. Think about how often, in your own language, you naturally shift topics mid-conversation without anyone even noticing it happened. In English, that smoothness comes from a small set of powerful words, and our first one here is segue. To segue means to move smoothly from one topic to a related one, almost like a bridge between two ideas. Instead of saying, "Let's talk about something else now," a fluent speaker says, "Let me segue into something related." It sounds intentional, controlled, confident. Picture this scene. You're catching up with an old university friend over coffee, and you've been talking about her new apartment for a few minutes. You want to bring up something else you've been wanting to ask her recent career change, but you don't want it to feel like you're cutting her off. You could say, "That's such a great apartment, by the way. That actually reminds me, can I segue into asking about your new job?" How's that going? Let's slow that down first. Can I segue into asking about your new job? Now, at natural speed, notice how seg into almost blends into one smooth sound, close to segue into. Try it with me, slow, then fast, twice each. Here's a longer dialogue to really lock this word in, because segueing well often takes more than one line to land naturally. Picture the coffee shop, warm lighting, the smell of espresso, the quiet hum of other conversations around you, and your friend, it's sitting across from you with her hands wrapped around a mug. She says, "Honestly, the apartment took forever to find, but I finally love where I ended up." You respond, "It really shows. This place suits you. That actually reminds me. Can I segue into something else I've been wanting to ask?" She says, "Of course, go ahead." You continue, "How's the new job been treating you?" "I heard you switched departments." She replies, "It's been a lot. Honestly, exciting, but overwhelming." You respond, "That makes sense. Big changes always come with both of those feelings at once." Notice how naturally the topic moved without either person feeling rushed or interrupted. Our next word in this cluster is pivot. To pivot means to change direction quickly, often in response to something unexpected, whether that's in a conversation, a business strategy, or even a relationship. Instead of saying, "We changed the subject," you say, "We pivoted to something else." Picture a work call that starts calm, sasa, but suddenly a colleague brings up bad news about a client. You need to pivot the discussion toward solutions instead of dwelling on the problem. You might say, "Okay, let's pivot to what we can actually do about this right now." Let's hear the pronunciation. Slow first. Let's pivot to what we can actually do about this. Now faster. Natural speed. Notice how "let's pivot" flows together smoothly. Repeat that twice with me now, out loud. Sometimes, though, a conversation moves off topic in a way that isn't intentional, and that's where our next word comes in. Tangent. A tangent is when the conversation drifts away from the main topic, often into something unrelated or unexpected. Instead of saying, "We got off topic," you say, "We went off on a tangent." And the verb form is digress, meaning to wander away from the main subject while speaking. Instead of saying, "I'm going off topic," a fluent speaker says, "Sorry, I'm digressing a bit." Picture yourself telling a story about your weekend trip, and halfway through you suddenly start talking about a completely different memory from years ago. You might catch yourself and say, "Wait, sorry, I'm totally digressing. Let me circle back to what I was actually saying." That phrase, "circle back," means to return to an earlier topic after moving away from it. Instead of saying, "Let's go back to what we said before," you say, "Let's circle back to that." Let's put tangent, digress, and circle back together in one natural flowing dialogue, because these three words often appear side by side in real conversation. Picture two friends walking through a park on a Sunday afternoon, sunlight coming through the trees, a slow, relaxed pace to their steps. One friend says, "So anyway, we were at the beach and, oh my gosh, that reminds me. Did I tell you about the time my cousin lost his passport in Portugal?" The other responds, "Wait, we're going on a total tangent here, but yes, actually, tell me that story first." First friend laughs and says, "Okay, sorry. I always digress when I'm excited." Basically, he left it on a train, and we had to go to the embassy the next morning. Second friend says, "That's insane, okay, but now I need to circle back. What happened at the beach?" First friend says, Right. So back to the beach story. Notice how playful and natural that entire exchange feels. None of it sounds scripted or robotic. It sounds like two real friends talking. Here's your third role switch exercise of the video. I'm going to play a coworker telling you a slightly long, winding story during a lunch break, and I want you to pause and respond, gently guiding the conversation using either tangent, digress, or circle back. Ready? I say, as your coworker, "So we were reviewing the budget, and actually that reminds me of this hilarious thing that happened at my last job. Completely different company, but similar situation. So basically there was this guy who..." Now pause the video and respond as yourself, gently steering things, maybe encouraging the tangent playfully or bringing it back. Go ahead and pause now. Well done if you tried that. Here's an example of a natural response. Okay, we're definitely going off on a tangent here, but I actually want to hear this story. Go ahead. Or, if you wanted to redirect instead, you might say, "That sounds hilarious. Remind me to ask about it later. But let's circle back to the budget for a second." Both are completely natural, and the choice depends on your mood and the situation, which is exactly how real fluent speakers use these words flexibly, not mechanically, not mechanically. One more word rounds out this transition cluster nicely. The word bridge, used here as a verb, meaning to connect two separate ideas or topics smoothly. Instead of saying, "I'll connect these two things," you say, "Let me bridge these two ideas together." Picture yourself in a presentation, moving from discussing a company's past performance into discussing future goals. You might say, "So, to bridge what we just covered with where we're headed next, let's look at our targets for next quarter." Let's slow that down. To bridge what we just covered with where we're headed next. Now, at natural speed, notice how what we softens into something closer to what we. Repeat that with me. Slow then fast twice. Let's pause here for just a moment, a short breath before we move into our next cluster. You've now added segue, pivot, tangent, digress, circle back, and bridge to your vocabulary, 6 more words, bringing your total to 16 so far. That's genuinely impressive progress, and I can already imagine you using these tomorrow, maybe redirecting a conversation at work, maybe gently steering a rambling friend back to the point. Take one slow breath in and out, and let's keep this momentum going. And yes, that's our very first word from today, already back in action. Now let's talk about something every fluent conversationalist does instinctively but struggles to name: reacting and jumping into a conversation naturally, without sounding rude, robotic, or hesitant. This next cluster is all about timing and personality. Our first word here is interject. To interject means to say something suddenly in the middle of someone else's speech, usually a short comment or reaction. Instead of saying, "I want to say something," you say, "Sorry to interject, but..." It's polite, it's fluent, and it shows confidence without rudeness. Picture a group conversation at a work. Lunch. 4 people talking about weekend plans, and you have something relevant to add, but the conversation is moving fast. "Sen," you might say. "Sorry to interject, but has anyone actually checked the weather for Saturday? I heard it might rain." That single polite phrase lets you join in smoothly instead of awkwardly waiting for a gap that might never come. Let's slow the pronunciation down. Sorry to interject, but has anyone checked the weather? Now, at natural speed, notice sorry to often blends into something closer to sorry-to. Say that with me twice. Slow, then fast. A slightly more casual version of this same idea is our next phrase. Chime in. To chime in means to join a conversation, usually to add a comment or opinion, often in a friendly, easygoing way. Instead of saying, "Can I say something too?" you say, "Can I chime in here?" It has a warmer, more casual tone than interject, which feels a bit more formal. Picture a group chat conversation happening out loud at a family dinner, everyone debating where to go on vacation next summer. You might say, "Can I chime in for a second? I actually think Portugal might be cheaper than Italy this year." Let's hear it in a short 3-line dialogue. Someone says, I really think we should just go back to the same place as last year. It was so relaxing. Another person says, "Can I chime in here? I love that idea, but I also kind of want to try somewhere new this time." First person responds, "That's fair. Let's look at both options." Now, when someone joins a conversation with a bit of clever, playful energy, quick and witty responses, we describe that using two related words, banter and wit. Banter is playful, teasing conversation, light and quick, back and forth, often between friends or coworkers who know each other well. Wit refers to the clever, quick, and often funny way someone speaks or thinks. Instead of saying, "They were joking around," you say, "They were bantering back and forth." Instead of saying, "She's really funny and smart," you say, "She has such sharp wit." Picture two coworkers who get along really well, standing by the coffee machine, gently teasing each other about who makes worse coffee. That light banter is part of what builds real connection at work. It's not wasted time. It's relationship building. Let's build a longer dialogue around banter and wit, because this is exactly the kind of natural, personality-driven exchange. We want you comfortable creating yourself. Picture the office kitchen. Mid-morning. Sunlight through the window. The smell of fresh coffee brewing. One coworker says, "Wow, you actually made coffee today? I'm shocked. Usually you just steal mine." The other responds with a grin, "Excuse me, I have made coffee exactly twice this year." And this is officially the third time. Historic moment. First coworker laughs and says, "Okay, historic moment noted. Should we frame the coffee pot?" Second coworker replies, "Please do, and maybe put a plaque under it that says, 'Here lies the day I finally contributed.'" That whole exchange is banter, playful, light, full of quick wit, and it's exactly the kind of natural social fluency that makes English speakers sound relaxed and confident rather than stiff. Our final word in this cluster is spontaneous. Something spontaneous happens naturally, without planning, in the moment. Instead of saying, "It wasn't planned," you say, "It was completely spontaneous." Picture deciding, in the middle of a normal Tuesday, to suddenly drive to the coast with a friend. No plan, no hotel booked, just pure impulse. You might describe it later by saying, "Honestly, it was so spontaneous we just got in the car and went." Let's practice the pronunciation, slow first. It was completely spontaneous. We just got in the car and went. Now, natural speed, notice, was completely, tends to blend, almost like was completely. Repeat that twice. Slow, then fast. Here's your fourth role switch moment. I'll play a friend suggesting something spontaneous, and I want you to pause and respond, reacting naturally, maybe using interject, chime in, banter, or spontaneous somewhere in your reply. I say, as your friend, "Okay, random idea, but what if we just left right now and went to that new restaurant everyone's been talking about?" Pause the video and answer as yourself, reacting with genuine energy. Go ahead now. If you tried that, nice work. You're building real reflexes here, not just knowledge. A fluent response might sound like, honestly, I love how spontaneous that is. Let's just go. We can figure out reservations on the way. That kind of instant, natural reaction is exactly what native speakers do, without thinking twice. And now you have the vocabulary to do the exact same thing. Let's shift now into one of the most important and most avoided parts of any conversation: silence. Almost every English learner is terrified of pauses, of not knowing what to say, of that awkward gap where nothing comes out. So this next cluster is going to completely change how you think about silence. Because fluent speakers don't avoid pauses. They know how to fill them naturally or let them exist comfortably. If our first word here is filler, referring to those small sounds and words like well, that native speakers use constantly while thinking. Instead of saying those little words people say while thinking, you simply call them fillers. Using fillers naturally, in moderation, actually makes you sound more fluent, not less, because completely silent pauses feel more unnatural in English than a soft or well while you think. Our next word is hesitation, meaning a pause caused by uncertainty or thinking time. Instead of saying, I paused because I wasn't sure, you say, there was a slight hesitation before I answered. It's a completely normal part of real speech, and naming it takes away its power over you. Picture yourself in an interview, and someone asks a tough question. A tiny hesitation before your answer isn't a failure. It's human. It's normal. Even confident native speakers do it constantly. Now, 3 closely related words describe what happens inside our heads during those quiet thinking moments: ponder, muse, and ruminate. To ponder means to think carefully about something before responding. Instead of saying, let me think, you can say, let me ponder that for a second, which sounds more thoughtful and intentional. To muse means to think reflectively, often out loud, sometimes trailing into a slightly dreamy or open-ended thought. Instead of saying, I was just thinking, you say, I was just musing about something. To ruminate means to think deeply and repeatedly about something, often something a bit heavier or more complex, sometimes with a slightly worried undertone. Instead of saying, I keep thinking about it, you say, I've been ruminating on it. Let's put these into a real, slow, reflective conversation, the kind that happens late at night between close friends. Picture a quiet living room, dim lighting, 2 friends sitting on a couch after a long day, mugs of tea slowly going cold. One friend says, can I ask you something kind of random? Do you ever just sit and ponder what you'd be doing if you'd taken a completely different career path? The other responds, actually, yeah. I muse about that more than I probably should, especially late at night. First friend says, same. Lately, I've been ruminating on whether I made the right choice staying in this city. Second friend replies, I don't think there's ever a clean answer to that, but I like that you're thinking about it instead of just drifting through life. Instead of clean agias. First friend says, yeah, exactly. I just don't want to look back one day and realize I never really chose anything. I just let things happen. That 6-line dialogue moves slowly, thoughtfully, exactly the kind of deeper conversation these words are built for. Our final word in this cluster is ramble, meaning to talk for a long time without a clear direction, often losing focus. Instead of saying, I talked too much without a point, you say, sorry, I was rambling a bit there. It's useful both to describe someone else's unfocused talking and, humbly, your own. Picture catching yourself mid-story, realizing you've gone on far too long without really saying anything important, and gently laughing at yourself, saying, wow, okay, I'm rambling. Let me just get to the point. That kind of self-aware humor actually makes you sound more fluent and more likable, not less. Let's take a short, quiet breath here again. A small pause in the middle of this lesson. Much like the pauses we just talked about, you don't need to fill every silence perfectly. Notice that. Even this video just had a natural, comfortable pause, and it felt fine, didn't it? That's the entire lesson wrapped into one small moment. You've now added filler, hesitation, ponder, muse, ruminate, and ramble to your vocabulary, bringing your total up to 26 words so far. And we still have rapport building, connected speech, and shadowing training, a sensory self-practice exercise, and a full fluency round still ahead of us. Take a breath, get your voice ready again, and let's keep moving forward into how fluent speakers build real, lasting connection through conversation. Real connection, the kind that makes people want to keep talking to you, keep inviting you back, keep choosing you as a conversation partner, comes down to a small set of words we're about to explore. Starting with rapport. Rapport means a close, comfortable relationship where people understand each other and communicate easily. Instead of saying, we get along well, a fluent speaker says, we have great rapport. It's a word you'll hear constantly in professional settings too, describing the relationship between a salesperson and client, a doctor and patient, a manager and their team. Picture yourself starting a new job, and within the first week, you notice you and one particular coworker. Just click, conversations flow easily. You laugh at the same things. Work discussions feel comfortable rather than stiff. You might describe this to a friend later by saying, I already have really good rapport with one of my new coworkers. It's honestly made the transition so much easier. Let's slow that sentence down. I already have really good rapport with one of my new coworkers. Now, at natural speed, notice how have really tends to blend closer to have really in fast, casual speech. Repeat that with me. Slow then fast, 2 times each. One of the fastest ways to build that rapport is through shared experience, and our next phrase captures that perfectly. Bond over. To bond over something means to build closeness or connection through a shared interest, experience, or activity. Instead of saying, "We became close because we both like this," you say, "We bonded over our shared love of hiking." Picture two strangers meeting at a work conference, both waiting awkwardly by the coffee station, and one notices the other wearing a shirt from a trail race. That single detail sparks a conversation. And 20 minutes later, they've bonded over their shared love of trail, exchanging numbers to run together sometime. This naturally brings us to our third word here. Anecdote, meaning a short, personal story told to illustrate a point or share an experience. Instead of saying, "Let me tell you a story," a fluent speaker says, "Let me share a quick anecdote." It sounds more polished, more intentional, especially in professional or semi-formal settings. Picture giving a presentation at work, and instead of jumping straight into statistics, you open with, "Before we dive into the numbers, let me share a quick anecdote that really shaped how I think about this project." That single sentence instantly makes your audience lean in, because stories, anecdotes, are how humans actually connect, far more than raw data ever will. Let's build a full role-play scene around this. Our next required professional context, a presentation setting. Picture a slightly nervous energy in the room, 10 people seated, laptops open, you standing at the front with a small clicker in your hand, heart beating just a little faster than normal. You begin your presentation like this. "Before I get into the data, I want to share a quick anecdote. Last month, I visited one of our stores and watched a customer struggle for nearly 10 minutes trying to find a product we know we have plenty of in stock. That moment completely reshaped how I think about our store layout." Notice how naturally that anecdote sets up everything that follows. It earns the audience's attention before asking for their focus on numbers. Now let's add candid to this cluster. A word describing honest, direct, open communication without holding back or hiding true feelings. Instead of saying, "I'll be honest with you," you say, "Let me be candid with you." It carries a slightly more serious, trustworthy tone. Picture a mentor giving you career advice, someone who genuinely respects you enough to tell you the truth instead of empty encouragement. They might say, "Can I be candid with you for a second? I don't think you're actually unhappy with your job. I think you're unhappy with how little you're being challenged." That kind of candid honesty, delivered with care, often builds far deeper rapport than polite avoidance ever could. Our next word, reciprocate, means to respond to an action or feeling by giving something similar back. Instead of saying, "I did the same thing back," you say, "I reciprocated." Picture a friend surprising you with thoughtful support during a hard week, showing up with food, checking in daily, and months later, When they're going through something difficult, you naturally reciprocate that same care and effort. Yi, you. Let's hear the pronunciation. Slow first. She was always so supportive, so of course, I reciprocated when she needed me. Now at natural speed, notice, of course, tends to compress into something closer to of course when spoken quickly. Repeat that with me now. Slow then fast, twice. The final word in this cluster is chemistry, used here not in the scientific sense, but describing that natural, easy connection between two people, an almost electric sense that a conversation just works, instead of saying, "We get along really well immediately," you say, "We just have great chemistry." Picture a first date that genuinely goes well, both people laughing easily, conversation flowing without effort, and afterward, describing it to a friend, you say, "Honestly, we just had such natural chemistry. It didn't feel forced at all." Let's build a short dialogue here. 4 lines, capturing that easy, natural energy. Friend asks, "So how'd the date go?" You respond, "Really well. Actually, we just had such good chemistry." Friend asks, "Are you going to see him again?" You reply, "Definitely. We already made plans for next weekend." Let's pause once more here. A brief, quiet breath in the middle of this rich block. You've now added rapport, bond over, anecdote, candid, reciprocate, and chemistry to your growing collection, bringing your running total to 32 words. Every single one of these is something you could genuinely use in a real conversation this week, not someday. This week. Take a slow breath and let's move into our final major vocabulary cluster, learning how to close a conversation or a topic gracefully, confidently, without it just trailing off into nothing. Ending a conversation well is honestly just as important as starting one, and it's something a lot of learners never practice at all. Our first word here is wrap up, meaning to bring something to a natural, tidy conclusion. Instead of saying, "Let's finish talking about this," you say, "Let's wrap this up." Picture a meeting running slightly over time, and the host gently says, "Okay, I think we should wrap up here so we can respect everyone's schedule, but let's continue this conversation next week." Dodd. Notice how much more natural and professional that sounds compared to a blunt, "Okay, we're done." Closely related is our next word, conclude, a slightly more formal way to say the same thing, often used in presentations or written communication. Instead of saying, "to finish," you say, "to conclude." Picture ending a presentation by saying, "To conclude, I believe this new approach will genuinely improve customer satisfaction over the next quarter." That word signals confidently and clearly that you're bringing your points together into a final statement, our next phrase. Follow-up refers to continuing contact or action after an initial conversation or meeting, checking back in, continuing the relationship or task. Instead of saying, "I'll talk to you again about this," you say, "I'll follow up with you next week." Picture finishing a job interview. And as you're leaving, saying, "Thank you so much for your time today. I'll follow up by email tomorrow just to say thank you again." Thank you again. That small gesture, that specific word, follow up, signals professionalism and genuine interest. This brings us naturally into our third required professional role play, a job interview. Scenario. Picture the room. A little formal, a glass table. Your resume printed neatly in front of the interviewer. Your hands slightly nervous in your lap. Near the end of the interviewer says, "Well, I think that covers everything on my end. Do you have any final questions for us?" You respond, "Just one. What would the next steps look like? And when should I expect a follow-up?" The interviewer replies, "Great question. We'll be conducting a few more interviews this week, and you should hear back from us by early next week." You respond, "Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation." That entire closing exchange, warm, professional, confident, is exactly the kind of moment where these words shine. Two more words complete this final cluster: reiterate, fucked, and paraphrase. To reiterate means to say something again, usually to emphasize or clarify a point already made. Instead of saying, "I want to say this again," you say, "just to reiterate." Picture finishing a work call by saying, "Just to reiterate. The deadline is Friday at noon, not Friday end of day." That small clarification prevents confusion later. To paraphrase means to restate someone else's words in your own words, often to confirm understanding. Instead of saying, "So you mean," you say, "So," to paraphrase what you just said. Picture a friend explaining something complicated about their new job, and you respond, "Okay, so to paraphrase, you're saying your new manager is supportive, but the workload itself is unrealistic?" Friend responds, "Exactly. You got it." That technique, paraphrasing, doesn't just clarify understanding. It makes the other person feel truly heard, which brings us right back to where we started this whole video: attentiveness. Our very final word for this section is succinct, meaning clear and brief, expressing something in few words without unnecessary detail. Instead of saying, "Keep it short," you say, "Keep it succinct." Picture finishing an email by writing a short, clear closing line instead of a long, rambling paragraph, and later describing your own communication style by saying, "I try to keep my emails pretty succinct. Nobody wants to read 3 long paragraphs." Let's slow that pronunciation down. I try to keep my emails pretty succinct. Now, at natural speed, notice "try to keep" often compresses closer to "try to keep" in relaxed, fast speech. Say that with me. Slow, then fast, twice. You've now completed all 8 major vocabulary blocks of today's lesson, and your total sits at 38 strong, usable, real C1 to C2 words and phrases. Genuinely, take a moment to feel proud of that, because most people never push past memorizing isolated word lists, and you just built an entire toolkit connected to real emotional situations. Now, Before we move into your final self-practice and fluency round, I want to teach you two specific listening skills that will completely transform how confident you feel in real conversations, shadowing and just listening. Let's start with shadowing, because this is different from simple repetition. And understanding that difference will change how effective your practice becomes. Simple repetition means listening to a full sentence and then, after it finishes, saying it back. Shadowing is different and more powerful. Shadowing means listening and speaking at almost the exact same time, echoing what you hear with only a tiny delay, like your voice is chasing the sound just a half second behind. This trains your mouth, your ear, and your brain to work together in real time, exactly like real conversation demands. Because in real conversation, you don't get a pause to think and then repeat. You have to process and respond almost instantly. Let's practice this together, right now. I'm going to say a sentence slowly, and I want you to start speaking almost immediately after me, not waiting until I finish completely, but echoing closely behind, like a shadow. Here we go. I think we should circle back to that later. Try shadowing that now, starting just slightly behind my voice, echoing the rhythm closely. Good. Let's do one more, a little faster this time. That really resonates with me, actually. Shadow that one too, right behind my rhythm, not waiting for a full pause. Now let's talk about just listening, which solves one of the biggest fears learners have. The fear of not catching every single word when someone speaks quickly. Here's the secret fluent speakers rely on. You don't need every word. You need the gist, the main idea, the overall meaning. Native speakers themselves, words constantly in fast conversation, and they simply respond to the overall meaning, using natural reactions like, I see, that makes sense, or right, while their brain continues processing in the background. Picture a coworker speaking quickly about a complicated project update, mentioning numbers and details faster than you can fully track. Instead of freezing, panicking, or asking them to repeat everything, you listen for the gist, the general shape of what they're saying, and respond naturally with something like, okay, that makes sense. So the main issue is just timing then? That single response shows you caught the important part, even if you missed a few smaller details along the way, and it keeps the conversation moving forward instead of stalling. Now it's time for your sensory self-practice exercise, one of the most powerful tools for turning today's vocabulary into automatic, natural reflexes outside of this video. Here's how it works. I want you to describe your current surroundings using your senses: sight, sound, feeling, using as many of today's words as naturally fit. I'll model it first, and then it's your turn. Here's my example. Right now, I'm sitting in a quiet room, and honestly, the silence feels a little stagnant. So let me try to revive the energy a bit. I can hear a faint hum from somewhere outside, and it's oddly calming. It resonates with how relaxed I feel right now. If I'm being candid, I could easily just sit here and ponder for another hour without moving. Notice how naturally those words fit into simple, real observation, nothing forced, nothing robotic. Now it's your turn. Pause the video, look around wherever you are right now, and describe it out loud using at least 3 or 4 words from today's lesson. Momentum, stagnant, revive, attentive, perceptive, resonate, elaborate, candid, whatever fits your actual surroundings. Take your time, pause now, and speak. Wonderful work if you did that, genuinely, because that single exercise is exactly what separates people who study English from people who actually live inside the language. Now, let's bring everything together with our fluency round. A fast-paced review where I want you to respond quickly, without overthinking, just reaching for whichever word feels natural. This is where all 38 words come rushing back into active use, one right after another. So keep your energy up and your voice ready. Momentum, say it. Stagnant, say it. Revive, say it. Attentive, say it. Perceptive, say it. Resonate, say it. Elaborate, say it. Unpack, say it. Delve into, say it. Eloquent, say it. Say it. Pivot, say it. Tangent, say it. Digress, say it. Circle back, say it. Bridge, say it. Interject, say it. Chime in, say it. Banter, say it. Wit, say it. Spontaneous, say it. Filler, say it. Hesitation, say it. Ponder, say it. Muse, say it. Ruminate, say it. Ramble, say it. Rapport, say it. Bond over, say it. Anecdote, say it. Candid, say it. Reciprocate, say it. Chemistry, say it. Wrap up, say it. Conclude, say it. Follow up, say it. Reiterate, say it. Paraphrase, say it. Succinct, say it. That's it. All 38 words. And if you just said every single one of those out loud, take a second to actually notice what your mouth and brain just did. That wasn't passive listening. That was active production, real spoken fluency practice. And this is exactly the kind of drill that rewires your brain to reach for these words automatically instead of freezing during a real conversation. Now, here's your specific, measurable action for today, and I want you to actually do this, not just nod along and move on with your day. Before you close this video, I want you to comment below with one full sentence using at least one word from today's lesson, describing something real from your own day. Not just the word by itself, a full sentence connected to something true about your life right now. Maybe something like, "My conversation with my sister today had really good momentum," or "I've been ruminating about a decision all week." Write it, post it, and if you do, I promise I will personally read through comments and reply to as many as I can, because seeing you actually use these words is honestly the best part of making this video. Let me leave you with one final thought before we close today's lesson. Fluency was never really about knowing more words than everyone else. It's about having the right words ready, waiting, connected to real moments, so that when a conversation slows down, when, when silence starts creeping in, when you feel that familiar flicker of panic, you have something solid to reach for instead of freezing. Today, you built 38 of those tools. Real, usable, connected to real situations you will actually live through this week. Keep this conversation going. Literally, comment below, practice out loud again tomorrow, and come back for our next lesson, where we'll keep building this vocabulary, piece by piece, moment by moment, exactly the way real fluency is built. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.